Hi, I'm Brett Johnson, former United States most wanted cyber criminal, now good guy. Or, as the United States Secret Service called me, the original internet godfather. Now, how did I get the title? 39 felonies, a place on the United States most wanted list. I escaped from prison, and I built and ran the first organized cybercrime community. It was called Shadow Crew. It was a precursor of today's darknet and darknet markets. It laid the foundation for the way modern cybercrime channels operate today. Those 39 felonies had to do with refining modern financial cybercrime as we know it today. Now, look, there's a whole story around all of that. And in fact, we talked about that story last episode. Today, though, we don't have time for that. Today, it's time for another episode of the Brett Johnson Show. Today's episode, when good guys break bad, when we come back. All right, so we are back to the Brett Johnson Show. Today's episode, when good guys break bad. And let me tell you, that was not going to be today's episode. Today's episode, I was going to talk about the Shadow Crew story. Last episode, I talked about the Brett Johnson story, and I recorded for like 2.5 hours. And I got through, and the day later, I realized that, hey, Brett, you really didn't talk much about the Shadow Crew story, about everything that happened there. I introduced some of the people that got arrested. I talked about it out, kind of on the fringes, but I didn't really dive deep, and I wanted to do that. And the reason why is because when I do this show or I do an interview or I'm on stage speaking or anything else like that, I come off as a very friendly, personable person. I joke a lot, I laugh a lot, everything else, and I do that. I've done that throughout my entire life. But it's important that people understand you don't make the United States Most Wanted list because you're a nice guy. You don't run thousands of cyber criminals and rise to the top of that heap because you're a pushover. So I wanted to talk about that story. However, things are apt to go awry at the best laid plans of mice and men. There was a story that came out about Uber, about them breaking the law for all these years and how, as they were building up their little taxi empire, or, killing the taxi business and building up the ride-sharing empire. I wanted to talk about that today, not only Uber, but some of these other companies that have been doing some evil shit. So you'll notice I've got the Kentucky hat today. I'm wearing the Kentucky hat because, hey, this is a no bullshit day. This is the day that we actually come in. We're going to talk about, we're just going to say what needs to be said. We're going to say what needs to be said. And the title of the episode is When Good Guys Break Bad. I guess I could talk about the United States Secret Service for a moment. It came out yesterday. I got to say, I don't give a damn about the January 6th hearings. I don't. I already know that Trump's an asshole. I already know what happened. I watched the damn stuff on TV. I don't need some dog and pony show to tell me, oh, it was really bad and we're not going to do anything at the end of the day. Because they're not. They're not going to do anything. But what got my attention, it seems that the Secret Service deleted some text messages from January 5th and January 6th. So obviously, there's a problem there. Now, they claim that it was part of a routine wiping of the phones. It just so happens that the routine wiping of the phones happened right after the investigative committee requested those text messages from the United States Secret Service. So it doesn't look very good. And while they may say that shit, let's be honest and let's be clear. More than likely, there was some information in there that powers that be did not want anyone to see or read. Now, what kind of information? I don't know. I will tell you this. I work with law enforcement. I have a deep respect and appreciation for law enforcement. They do an outstanding job. That includes the United States Secret Service, who, for anybody who missed the story, I ripped off. I screwed over. Got 2 agents fired. But I will tell you that those men are very good men. What I suspect those text messages we're talking about is you probably had a bunch of agents that were letting off steam, bullshitting, saying stuff that men say to each other. I know that's a weird way to say it. I said it, then I harken back, well, Donald Trump said that when he was talking about grabbing women. But the truth of the matter is these agents it would not surprise me that you had some of them saying, hey, shit, probably a good thing. Hell yeah, let them take over everything, whether it was meant or not, in a joke and moments of stress whatsoever. And I expect that's may have been what was erased. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just naive. I don't know. Hopefully, we'll have some whistleblower come out and tell us what the hell they were talking about. I expect it was something like that. Something like, yeah, Biden's an idiot. Somebody needs to do something about Biden coming in. I don't know why the United States Secret Service would erase messages like that, because I got to tell you guys, only about 18% of America doesn't agree with that sentiment. We are in one hell of a mess in this country. And we have absolutely no leadership at all. Just my opinion. But hey, this is not the political Brett Johnson show. This is just the Brett Johnson show. We're talking about companies today. So before we get into that, and we'll do the Shadow Crew episode, the next episode. But before we get into that, of course, we go over some viewer comments. So let me pull this up. Yeah. Alex Jones from the Lex Friedman Show. He comes in and he says, hey, Brett, appreciate how you read and respond to all the comments. Super wholesome. Alex, man, I got to say, for those who may not have seen the Lex Friedman Show, 1.2 million people have watched that episode, and I am very humbled by that. I'm very appreciative by that. I think that Lex Friedman is an outstanding human being. The quality of guests that he has on that show, I am honored to be in the list of people that he has brought in and talked to. And for me not to read the responses from people taking the time to watch that episode, for me not to read the responses and then to respond them, what kind of an asshole would I be? Of course I'm going to respond. That's the right thing to do. Anyone that wouldn't respond to that, I think that they're narcissistic and, got to stick up their ass, and they need to get off that high horse. Just my thought. All right. So Sean Eisen, watching my show, the Brett Johnson Show, he responded. He's like, is there any way you could do like audio from your videos on YouTube and that we could download? I usually listen to jams while I work, mostly podcast, rather listen to your crazy ass. Ha ha. Well, I tell you what, I've been working on a website and getting everything transferred over to Spotify. I'm still working on that. I'm hoping to get that up, honestly, this week, because I've got the Megyn Kelly show coming up July 19th, and I'd like to have all this stuff in place before I'm on her show. We'll see, but I'm trying. Okay, I'm trying. You also, Sean also said, hey, no hat today, huh? This was for the last episode. Probably too much of something. Nice shiner, though. Ha ha. Go Cats. Keep up the good work, brother. As you notice, Sean, Cats out today because, as I said, this is a no bullshit day. No bullshit day means Kentucky. That's right. We do not suffer idiots in Kentucky. We don't do it. Ken White, for my show, it's he said, hey, Brett, stay on the right side, bro. You are too smart not to. Ken, thank you, man. Seriously, thank you. It's a long trip, dude. It's been a long trip. It truly has. I had so over on Telegram, I go on Telegram on the criminal channels there under my name, under Brett Johnson. And the people there know who I am. And by and large, they accept me. Sometimes you'll have one of these newbie idiots that will pop up and say, oh, why are we letting somebody like that in here? And the response typically is, hey, leave him the hell alone. At least we know he's here. How many other cops do you think are visiting this place right now? And they kind of leave me alone. And the thing is that I guess there's a mutual acceptance, respect, and understanding. I don't go in there and judge those people. I understand because I have been on that side. I have been the guy breaking the law and victimizing companies and everything else. And I understand that, from the criminal side, it's justification, it's cognitive dissonance, and it's also viewed as this is what I do for work. Criminals try to tell themselves, and I was no different. I tried to tell myself that, hey, I'm not a bad guy. This is how I make money. This is how I have to make money. This is what I'm going to do. So there's that mutual, and while I don't agree with that, before some ass pops up and says, "Oh, he said he," blah, blah, blah. No, I don't agree with that, but I understand it, and I don't judge the people over there. I don't agree with what they do, but I don't judge them either. Okay, I accept them on their own merits, and I've tried to discuss, hey, why don't you quit this shit, or at least get out of this shit as soon as you can, find a legal career, and just do the right thing, dude. Sometimes they listen, most of the time they don't. But anyway, I was on Telegram a couple of days ago talking to Noir. Yes, I was. Noir is one of the top fraudsters on Telegram. He got his ass in quite the pickle about June 1st, I think is when that was. He got his ass in quite the pickle, and he shut down every single operation that he had on Telegram. So he was talking with me the other day, and I guess he hadn't seen that I had done an episode on refunding fraud. So the dude comes in, he's like, "Hey man, what are you trying to do? This is how I make a living, man. Are you trying to get this thing solved and patched?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what the hell I do." Then I said, but realize, dude, refunding fraud has been going on since about 2013, 2012. So it's like, if Amazon's not solved that shit by now, and they've not, do you think all these other merchants are? Not until they have a fundamental shift that doesn't seem to be likely to happen anytime soon. So that seemed to appease him. Just thought I'd throw that in there because, hey, we're all about viewer comments today. Moving right along. All right, viewer comments. Oh, from Reddit on the Lex Friedman subreddit. Had a gentleman pop in, a couple of guys. They said, low-key, Lex needs to interview more former criminals. The Reeves and Johnson interviews were incredible, and I was particularly impressed with how Johnson spoke like a CEO. Dude has just insane industry context on cybercrime. I could not respond to that. So I was like, "Hey man, thank you. Much appreciated, Brett." And it's true. I told my wife last night, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I'm able to work on the good guy side of things now, and I can see both sides and the problems of both sides. So it gives me a viewpoint and an insight that really is not available anywhere else in the industry. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is we talk about these companies that have been screwing things over. But I think this gentleman, then someone else came in, and that gentleman's name was New Reddit is Horrific, and I cannot argue with him. That's why I choose the classic view. The other guy is Jimger, 1983. Johnson's honesty and sense of humor behind everything from his life of crime, relationship with his parents, and romantic experiences made for 3 hours of pure gold. Best episode in my opinion. And I'm very humbled by it. I am, I spent a lifetime lying. That's the truth. Spent a lifetime lying to myself, to others, to my victims, family members, friends, everything else. And I just can't do that. Part of my recovery of becoming a better person is being honest. And that's one of the reasons, again, for this episode today. Somebody has to say this shit because it seems like nobody wants to. So we're doing this today. We're doing this. Yeah, we're doing this. All right. So that was from Reddit and then from my show as well. Great stuff, Brett. Very motivational. That's Jay Pierce. Mega Shredder 101 comes in and says, would you ever meet up with Matthew Cox from Concrete? He has his own podcast, which is very good. And I said, hey, Matthew is a great, from what I've seen, he puts on a very great show. Looks like he's turned his life around. He's doing well. I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk to the guy. Absolutely. He was actually on the United States Most Wanted list when I was screwing over the United States Secret Service in Columbia, South Carolina. He was on that list out of Columbia, South Carolina. So I would love to sit down and talk to the guy. Absolutely. And Mega Shredder then responded, hey, I just got to the part where I'm talking about Omar Denani. I was part of Wonderland Time, but I took my money out before the guy Omar was found out to be the CFO, the chief financial officer. I'm very lucky that I did that just because I didn't see it as a long-term project. All it was for me was a tax write-off, but I feel bad for the people who lost as much money as they did. And for those who may have missed me talking about that, I've mentioned on a couple of episodes. Omar Dhanani was a money launderer, serves four years once Shadow Crew gets busted, serves 4 years in prison, gets out, changes his name to Michael Patron, opens up a crypto exchange with another Shadow Crew operative, Gerald Cotton. They go off and $236 million worth of crypto ultimately vanishes. Gerald Cotton supposedly dies. Michael Patron is never charged with anything. And then just a few months ago, Michael Patron, or Omar Dhanani's name, pops up again with another cryptocurrency called Wonderland Time, which was going off at $10,000 a plus per token until they find out that Omar's part of it, and then it crashes. And right now, I don't know what it is. Last I saw, it was about $117, and it may be completely worthless right now. That was before crypto winter hit. What I can say is hey, especially in crypto, because nothing is regulated. You've got a lot of what you call whales out there that control the market. You've got exchanges out there that claim to be liquid, and they're not. I mean, we're seeing that right now with these exchanges and these companies that are going bankrupt because they simply don't have the money that people thought they had. So it's very important that we get proper regulation in. It's very important if you're buying these tokens or investing, or you have your money with an exchange or anything else like that, that you know what you're doing. And it's very difficult to know what you're doing when these companies are not disclosing these things, or these companies are not being properly audited, like, for example, Tether. All right, so moving right along. Bunny Middleton. Oh my God, nothing is funny about your life. You make me seem sane. Well, Bunny, I can't disagree with you. I mean, I joke, I laugh a lot, I do the little friggin' voices and everything else like that, but I am well aware that my life story doesn't have a lot of really funny stuff, but it's got a lot of absurd shit that goes on or has went on. So I do, it's better to laugh than cry about it. And that's what I plan on doing. All right. Bunny also says, how about government agents who ask for information that they should not? I'm going to do an episode on privacy. I already mentioned the Secret Service stuff with them deleting messages. I'm extremely uncomfortable with that. I think a best case scenario is you had a bunch of agents that were dogging Biden and bullshitting around saying, oh yeah, they need to take over the country. So they figured they'd get rid of that. I think that's the absolute best case scenario about these deleted text messages. Worst case, my God, I'd hate to even think about it. All right. When you've got a group that does not have oversight, that is allowed to do things like that, it is very, very disturbing. Very disturbing. All right, with that, we'll take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to dive into when good guys break bad on the Brett Johnson Show when we come back. Okay, so we're back to the Brett Johnson Show again, and it's time to start the episode when good guys break bad. So let me ask you something. Here we go. Here's the moral quandary question of the day. Let's say that you go into a pawn shop or say a used guitar store or something like that, and you see a nice Gibson sitting right there just looking at you. You're looking at the Gibson, you're like, man, I like that Gibson. And the closer you look at the Gibson, you realize that, hey, this is a really expensive guitar. He's only wanting $200 for this thing. I can easily, because it's so rare, I could easily sell it for $6,000, $7,000. So he's only got a price sticker on it of $200. You look at the guy, the shop's kind of run down. You know he's not very good position. But hey, he's only got a $200 sticker on that guitar that you can get maybe $6,000 from. What do? Do you tell the owner of the store, hey man, this guitar, I think you've got it mispriced wrong. It's worth a hell of a lot more than that. Why don't you, let me show you, and you pull out your Google and you show what he can get for it and everything else. Do you do that, or do you just go ahead and buy the guitar for $200, take it home, resell it, and profit that $5,000-$6,000? Now, that's one hell of a question. And I'm going to say that there's a lot of people out there that may say, well, shit, no, I'm going to buy that thing for $200. But let's flip that coin for a second. Let's say that you go into this guitar store and you see a nice Gibson. And that Gibson's got a $6,000 price tag on it because it's a rare Gibson, or at least it looks like a rare Gibson. The owner, though, of the shop knows that it's not a rare Gibson. He knows that it's a knockoff, that it's a copy, that it's counterfeit, that it's worth about $200. But he's got that $6,000 sticker on there. You don't know that it's a counterfeit. So would you get mad if the owner didn't tell you it was counterfeit? Probably. But you see, the thing is, that's the exact same story, the exact same situation, just with the perspective flipped. And I would argue that if you look at Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos, that her story is not much different than that, except it's a degree of scale. She just went way the hell out there with it. That's one of the things that we need to think about as this episode goes on today, because I think that a lot of the time that we dismiss fraud or lies because of the scale of what happened, of the scale of the problem, or because of our own perspective. If it benefits us, we'll wink at it. We won't mention it. But the problem is that when you're involved in fraud, when you're deceiving others or being quiet, and being quiet is a form of a lie. If you know something and you're being quiet about it, you are lying. You are helping facilitate that fraud or that lie. And I know it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird for this guy, the former most wanted guy, the criminal, the guy who ripped every motherfucker off on the planet. It's kind of weird for that guy to be the one saying this. But somebody's got to say it. Somebody's got to say it. And the problem is that I'm in an industry, and it's not just the cybersecurity, cybercrime, and fraud industry. It seems like it's most every industry that's out there, that people are scared to call out things that need to be called out. And I have historically been that son of a bitch that will call it as it is, that will say what needs to be said. I lived my criminal life like that. That's one of the ways that I was able to rise to the top, is that I did not have any respect of persons. If you crossed that line, if you did something wrong within that environment, I was going to call your ass out, and I was going to nail you to the wall for that. So I bring that mindset with me now that I'm on the good guy side of things, and I am known for calling things out, whether it be Zelle or Facebook or ID Me or Uber, as we're getting ready to here in a second. I call out what needs to be called out. If there's something's being done wrong, I don't care if it's a quote criminal or a corporation, I will call out what needs to be called out. It's just amazing to me that in an industry as large as cybersecurity, cybercrime, fraud, identity theft, it's amazing to me that there are so few voices that are being heard when one of these companies does something wrong. And it's even more amazing to me that it takes a former criminal to be one of the largest voices that's crying out. I'm not trying to pump myself up, anything else like that. It comes with consequences. I think that's a lot of the problem. It comes with consequences. And I have felt those consequences in this industry. A few years ago, I was in San Francisco. I was at the CNP conference. And leading up to me speaking at that conference, I was on stage. The presentation was on stage with Carice Hendrick. We were doing a live episode of the online fraudcast, which is now defunct. But leading up to that presentation, I had been being told by countless merchants, by people that I was presenting with, by all these other things that, hey, this bank, Synchrony, had been really screwing over a lot of their customers. And there were several different stories. Whether true or not, there were several different stories. I say true or not. The only thing I can do is go by the words of the merchants and the words of the people that were telling me these stories. And a lot of the stories were, so what was one of the things that got me so irate? A merchant that's hit with, so they're hit with credit card fraud, okay? If it's traditional identity theft that they're being hit with, the responsibility of payment, the loss of the item, or the monetary loss, falls on the merchant, because that's a card not present transaction. If the card is not present, if you're not doing a chip entry, if the card is not present, then the liability falls on the merchant. That's if it's traditional identity theft. So think traditional credit card theft, things like that. If it's synthetic fraud, if it's synthetic identity theft, which means the criminal has built a fake person, he's pumped that fake person's credit score up to 700 credit score. He's went and opened some credit card accounts with credit card companies, banks, what have you. And then he uses that synthetic account to hit a merchant. The monetary loss falls on the financial institution, the bank. Well, what the word that was going around was, hey, this bank they're seeing synthetic fraud, but they're not telling the merchants that it's synthetic fraud. They're telling the merchants that it's traditional identity theft, so that the merchants have to pay the monetary loss and the bank doesn't experience that. That rubbed me wrong, because I see a lot of merchants out there, especially camera merchants, that may operate, if they're lucky, on a 2% margin. So they get hit with synthetic fraud, which they're not liable for, yet the bank doesn't tell them that. They tell them, hey, you're liable because it's traditional identity theft. That merchant's in a lot of trouble. So I took exception to that. And I was on stage and I called the bank a bunch of assholes. Probably not the best choice of words, but hey, I'm the guy that calls it out. I don't have much of a filter when I see something being done wrong. The funny thing that happened, though, is when I called it out, all of those merchants who had told me those stories and other stories, all of those merchants, all of those friends that had told me that as well, they dropped to the side pretty quickly. Oh, no. Yeah, you shouldn't have said anything. What the hell do you mean you shouldn't have said anything? You're being screwed over. You're too scared to say it yourself. Somebody calls it out, and you don't even, it's like, oh, no. And why is that? Why is that? Why are you scared to say what is? Well, it boils down to scared of losing your job, scared of losing a client, scared of losing a contract, scared of doing the right thing. As a result of that, I have not been invited back to that conference. I saw a couple of people a few weeks ago from that conference. And while we were joking around about it, it was also said that, hey, it's real good when you're calling companies out and doing all this stuff until it hits home, and then it matters. And I'm like, yeah, I guess it does. But, to me, it doesn't matter if you're doing the right thing. It shouldn't matter if you're doing the right thing. So I got blacklisted from that. But the secret to all that is that the people that I care most about, my tribe, are consumers. That's who I care most about. That's who I care most about protecting, because they don't have the protections in place that these big, huge corporations have. They don't have the security budget or the cybersecurity budget that these huge corporations have. They don't have the knowledge base that these corporations have. They don't have the ability to go out and get consultants to talk to them about the problems that they've got. So my focus, while I work to protect companies every single day, my main primary focus is, hey, I want to make sure that consumers are protected, because at the end of the day, we are all consumers. So that's my first real entry into experiencing the consequences of calling out the things that need to be called out in this industry. A few weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago, 3-4 months ago, I had some victims of Zelle fraud that contacted me, and they were the bank had blamed them for the fraud which had been perpetrated upon them. So I was going off the handle. I did a couple of episodes of my show on that, and one of the people that I was working with at that point, she was very, very disturbed that I would have the audacity to call out a company for doing the wrong thing. And she even came out and said, she said to me, she was like, Brett, you could be like Frank Abagnale if you would just not say these things. You could be that guy that these huge banks pay tens of thousands of dollars to come in and talk and consult with them. But they're not going to do that if you're calling them out for the stuff that they're doing. And it occurred to me that while she's telling me this, that she has no clue what my motivations are. You see, I've had money. I've stolen money. And I like money, but I like the idea of doing the right damn thing more than that. And that is my guiding motivation. And it occurred to me that this lady had no clue what my true motivations on anything was. She thought it was money, was cash. No, I mean, I make money, but I'll damn sure call out the things that need to be called out. People who have worked with me know that. This one didn't. Fortunately, I don't have to work with her anymore. That was very fortunate. That was, and there was all, she was all the time trying to tell me, you can't post that on Twitter. You can't do that. And I was like, well, you can watch me. You don't have to read it, but I'm going to say what I need to say, which brings us to the story of the day. So I was reading the other day, I got all my news feeds going on, and it popped up. Somebody had an Uber insider, evidently some exec, had given like 124,000 documents, confidential Uber documents, over to The Guardian. And these documents had detailed how Uber had broken the laws, had broken several laws, how they had duped law enforcement, how they had lobbied governments, how people like Macron and all these other people were involved in these acts that Uber was doing, these criminal acts. And Uber was aware that they were breaking the law, and they were joking about it in these documents. They were calling themselves pirates. They were even for violence happening against their own drivers, because the CEO, at the time, the CEO of Uber was saying how that would actually be good for Uber expanding its business. They went, so there's been several articles. The initial Guardian article that I read, and I'll have links to these in the show notes, is Uber broke laws, duped police, and secretly lobbied governments. Leak reveals. And there's another one that says, firm Uber knew it launched illegally in Australia, then leaned on governments to change the law. There's another one, Uber leveraged violent attacks against its drivers to pressure politicians. That's from the Washington Post. There's one from Shift. The Uber files reveal a strategy of chaos and law breaking, and more troubles lie ahead. There's another Guardian article. The Uber, or it's an editorial. The Uber files tell a simple truth. Democracy depends on curbing mercenary tech giants. Again, the Guardian. The world is rightly appalled by its Uber files, the drivers aren't so surprised. Another one from The Guardian, quote, "They were taking us for a ride," end quote, how Uber used investor cash to seduce drivers. So you've got all of these stories centering on how Uber broke the law in order to establish their business across the planet, how they relied on Uber drivers being attacked and looked forward to that so that they would stand a better chance of having a business in that country, or how they would actually go into the country illegally and then worry about it. How they would pay off politicians and lobbyists, how these politicians worked under the table to help Uber gain footholds, like Macron, for example. How they worked under the table to do that. How Uber knew they were breaking the law and didn't care, joked about it. So I read that. I've been reading a few articles about that. And I posted about it on LinkedIn because somebody needs to say something. Hey, this shit is not right. This shit can't stand. Something's got to be done. So I posted about it. I 3,000 people read it, not many. Had I don't know, 30 likes, 70 likes, something like that. Very few comments, 7. And, it occurs to me that that we are in a world where people are so worried about themselves that they will not, or feel they cannot, speak up when something is wrong. And I don't know what to think about that, guys. I truly do not know what to think about that. We're living in a society where it seems that anyone can do anything and not have to worry about anyone speaking up, unless, it's, I don't know, maybe the woke stuff. Other than that, you're not supposed to speak up. People who do speak up, nothing happens most of the time because so very few voices are speaking up. And I understand. I understand, because it's certainly been told to me enough over the past couple of years that, hey, you speak up, you say that these companies have got a problem, and what's going to happen is they're not going to bring you in to speak. They're not, if you're working with a company, you're not going to have a contract with that company, or they're going to drop you they're not going to be your client anymore. And it's true. It's true. But even then, even if that is true, you stand the chance of losing a job, or losing a client, or losing a contract. Even at that point, it seems to me that we've got a duty. I said duty. I'm sorry. It seems to me that we've got a duty to call out the things that need to be called out. Are we just going to let Uber run ramshod or roughshod, or whatever the damn word is? Are we going to let them run just willy-nilly over anything and everything in order to establish a business that, by the way, basically killed the entire taxi industry, a business that, while Uber's drivers initially were paid very well, as another article points out, because Uber was using investor cash to do so. And then once that ended, Uber drivers now, they ain't nearly as happy. Are we going to let a company that did that knew they were breaking the law, that relied on violence being perpetrated against its own drivers in order to succeed, are we going to let that stand just because Uber's got, a few $1 billion, just because they can potentially wreck somebody's career, or drop you as a company they've signed on with, or not do business with you, or not bring you in to speak? There's got to be a line someplace. There's got to be a line. There's got to be people out there that say, no, by God, we've had enough. This is wrong. I mean, I don't understand why we don't have more people angry about that. And it's not just Uber. I mentioned Zelle. So Uber's problem, hey, at the end of the day, Uber gets eaten alive with fraud every single day. All right. Every single day, Uber gets eaten alive with fraud. You got these fraud farms out there. You got bots that are hitting them. You got all this bullshit. You got regular slow human attackers like I used to be, everything else. You got all these cyber crimes that attack and hit Uber. Why would anybody feel sorry for the crimes that Uber's being hit with when they pull bullshit like this? Why would anybody want to do business with Uber when they've done something like this? It's not just Uber. I've talked about Zelle in the past. You know, you want to know the truth about Zelle? The truth about Zelle is, until these banks get it straightened out, nobody should be using Zelle. Nobody. How does the fraud work? I've done an episode on this before with Zelle. All right, I've done an episode on this. What happens is, and this is more the high level type of fraud. I can go on the dark web. I buy some of your banking account information, some of the transactions that are there. I get your PII, your personal information as well, maybe your background check. From there, I'm going to send a text message to your phone. It's going to look like it comes from your bank, and it's going to say, hey, we just received your request to wire out $2,000. If you did not approve this request, press N. You're going to press N because you damn sure didn't approve the request. You're going to press N. You're going to immediately get a phone call from a number that looks like it shows on the caller ID that it's your financial institution. I'm going to get on there. I'm going to act like I'm your I'm going to act like I'm your bank. And I'm going to start quoting some of your own information back to you, some of the background report stuff. I'm going to report some of the financial transactions on that account that we're talking about. And I'm going to convince you that I am your bank because I'm able to do that. I'm able to quote all this stuff back to you. The spoofed phone call, the text message, all of that layers enough trust that you're like, yeah, it's my bank. And then I'm going to tell you, hey, yeah, you've got a problem with your bank. We need to make sure we secure your funds. So I need you to send the money over here. And you're going to Zelle the money to me. And I'm going to walk away with it. And then you're going to realize that, oh, man, I just got defrauded. And you're going to call your bank, your real bank this time. And you're going to tell them, hey, I just got hit with fraud. And that bank is going to tell you, we can't help you. It's your fault, is what the bank's going to say. And the bank's going to treat you like the criminal. The truth of the matter is that those banks have the tools to protect you in this Zelle fraud. Now, I got a couple buddies out there. They raise hell almost every damn day about Zelle. All right, and I was raising hell for a long time about Zelle. And I kind of dropped that because I didn't want to just keep talking about that because there's so much other shit that needs to be talked about. But my buddies too, they're out there trying to get these banks to bring them in so they can teach some sort of class on how to defeat Zelle fraud. You don't need a class. You don't need a class because the tools are already there on how to defeat Zelle, how to stop Zelle fraud. And here, you want to know how it is? Here's what's actually happened. The Zelle app itself, which is ran by EWS, Early Warning Services. That Zelle app is outstanding. It is outstanding. It stops about 98% of all the fraud across the board. And the reason why is because that Zelle app, EWS, they can see who the receiver is and they can see who the sender is. And they're able to get all of that transaction data across. And they can pretty well determine, hey, is this transaction fraudulent or not? When were both accounts set up? Blah, blah, blah. Has this person historically been sending money over to this person? Anything else like that? They can see all that shit. If you're using Zelle within your banking app, just because it's, you open up your online banking, you can Zelle people over. It's not the app itself. It's not the Zelle app. No, it's not. I'm talking about the Zelle Purple app. If it's not the Zelle Purple app, if it's just inside of your bank, guess what? That's not secure at all because the banks are not communicating with each other. All right. The sending bank, they see who the sender is, but they don't see anything over on the receiving side. anything. They just see that, oh yeah, okay, so we've got the sender here. They're sending it out there. They initiated the transfer. They don't see that the account that's set up over here is a fraudulent account, that it's had all these other questionable transactions on it, blah, 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 blah. They don't see that. Because of that, because these banks do not have a clear picture of that entire transaction, both sending and receiving, because they don't have that, it becomes very insecure at that point. And that's why I'm saying don't use it. Now, could they fix that? Yes, they absolutely could fix that. You could get an outside security team in there. You could have the banks that decide all of a sudden to start using Zelle app, everything else. Very easy to fix that. Why won't they fix that? The reason why they won't fix that is because those banks would have to give up the data to either EWS or to another bank or to a security team. That's why. And they don't want to give that data up, because at the end of the day, the only thing of value on this planet anymore is information. That's it. And they don't want to let that information go, because that is the real value in everything that's going on. So that's why. That's why Zelle, the fraud's out there. Yeah, banks could stop all that shit, and banks could have put friction up. When I talk about friction, banks could put friction that deters these fraudsters. They could easily do that. They could put the little warning signs up saying, hey, do you know this person? You could ask the set of security questions at the beginning of the transaction to determine if you've ever sent money to this person, to determine if it's a fraudulent transaction or not. They won't even do that because they don't want to cause friction to those people sending it. They don't want the idea to be out there that Zelle is screwed up. They want everyone to think that Zelle is just fine. And it's not. It's not. Not until they fix it. So until they fix it, my advice is don't use it. See, we're calling shit out today. Damn right we are. Facebook, that's another one I've called out in the past. We had that whistleblower. You know, I've been calling out Facebook, and I was not the only one. People have been very good about calling out Facebook, thank God, for their privacy practices, for, Cambridge Analytica, for every single thing, for the crime that takes place on Facebook. Just the tons of stuff that takes place on Facebook that Facebook could end if they wanted to. We had the whistleblower come out a few months ago, and she kind of reaffirmed everything. So that was great. But even today, you've still got people in the cybersecurity industry and at large that, because Facebook is as big as it is, because they've got more money than God and more power than God, they won't say anything. And it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing. I guess today's episode is a bitch episode more than anything. Brett Johnson bitches about things today. You got ID me. Anybody that knows me knows that I've been calling out ID.me forever. I got them. They lost their contract with the IRS because of me. They did all this other shit because of me. And I have huge problems with ID.me. They're that marketing company that tries to act like a security company. And of course, there's been some nice articles from Business Insider and all these other, websites and news organizations talking about, hey, ID.me pretty screwed up over there. Matter of fact, I was on the dark web yesterday, and ID.me is the only, quote, security company that I see their accounts being sold on dark web marketplaces. If you are doing business with ID.me, let me caution you once again. I don't see any other security company accounts being sold on the dark web other than ID.me. That alone should tell you something. If that doesn't, simply do a Google search, and article upon article upon article will pop up talking about this billion-dollar security company and their problems. What else? I don't know. We could bitch about all kinds of stuff. We could talk about these mobile phone companies that are out there and the problems with SIM swaps, how they're denying that, hey, you guys have got one hell of an insider problem going on, because you do. You do at the end of the day. Yeah, sure. You've got those criminals that will call in and social engineer the SIM swap. But the easier way is to find some bitch working inside the shop that will do that for you. And believe you me, that is not a hard thing to do. And it's not a hard thing to stop. But these phone companies, these mobile phone providers, are not really, it's not really our fault. It's not, the customer, I know they told us not to, they told us not to do any swaps at all unless they came in and showed the physical driver's license. But I don't know what happened. It happened anyway. Yeah, it happened anyway. Yeah. So you got that kind of stuff going on. What else we got? What else? Credit bureaus. So credit bureaus are businesses, okay, where you get your credit report. When you go out to get that car loan or your home loan or just try to open up credit just starting out in life or anything else like that. Those credit bureaus, they are not just these nonprofit companies that simply build up your credit history and then give you a credit score so you can start your life out. No, they're not. They're companies that make money on what? On information, because information is the only thing that's of value anymore. So these companies, I forget the actual statistic. It's something like 40% of every single credit report has incorrect information on there. And because these credit bureaus are businesses, they're not really very interested in just willy-nilly removing that information. It becomes, sometimes it's easy to get it taken off and sometimes not, but they're not really interested in doing that in and of themselves. And that's one of the issues that I've got with this is, hey, you're given a credit score that may be based on incorrect data that you don't care about, that this credit score is going to affect the individual that you're giving it to potentially for life. I think that's a problem. Or you're like Equifax or Experian or the other one, TransUnion. You experience a breach. And then what happens? Well, then you decide, well, we'll give you a year or 3 years or maybe even 5 years of credit monitoring to make sure that, you're not victimized, knowing that this problem is a lifetime problem. You're going to need that monitoring for the rest of your life. And what happens at that point? The breach, like for Equifax, for example, that breach ended up, you would think that the company would lose money. They profited enormously because of that, because people coming in and signing on for credit monitoring services, paying them for that, everything else. They raised hell when it came time to do free credit locks, credit freezes. And when the credit freezes became free September 18th of 2018. When those things became free, guess what? They hid that shit on their website where it becomes extremely difficult to even find how you're supposed to lock down your credit. When bad guys or when good guys break bad, when good guys just do the wrong damn thing. I don't get it. I mean, I do get it. I may look like this, but I'm not naive. And I understand that at the end of the day, it's all about the money. At the end of the day, it's not about caring about your customers or doing the right thing. It's about the bottom line. How much money can you put in your pocket? That's what I understand. I understand that's why people don't talk, why they don't speak out, why these companies think they can do this kind of stuff, because they're paying off, the lawmakers and the politicians, everything else at the end of the day. I mean, Uber, they circumvented the police. They did all this stuff, the investigations. I mean, it was crazy what they did. And this problem's going on, not just with these companies, but it's a problem with many companies out there, that they're not doing what they need to do, that they're not showing that they care about the customers. They only care about the information. They only care about the bottom line and the profit at the end of the day. Something's wrong with that, because we have the ability to do the right thing. Not only that, but we have the ability to call things out as we need to. Why are we not calling this out? Why are there so many silent people in my industry and across the planet that just take it, that just lay down and don't worry about it. They think that they're worried about their own little protective bubble, and they don't want anything to bust that bubble or to burst that bubble. And I think the reason is because, hey, we live in a society these days that, you know, it's like 80% of everyone in the United States lives paycheck to paycheck. It's just, we are so concerned that something may happen and put our families in a dire position. And I'm going to tell you guys the truth of the matter. You're probably right. You're probably right. The whistleblower on Uber, he was scared. He was scared that while he was there, he was literally scared that something would happen to his family if he called it out. Think about that for a second. Something, I'm scared for my family's safety. So now we're talking about people who aren't, who you know, because they work in this industry, or they have friends, family members, what have you, because they're concerned that they may lose their job, that their boss may come down on them and say, hey, what the hell are you doing talking about this? Because they're scared of losing a contract for their company. They won't say the right thing. Yeah, they'll think it all day long. When somebody comes up and says it, they'll even agree with it. But like on LinkedIn or Twitter or something like that, they won't publicly come in and comment about it. Behind the lines, you know, through a direct message, hey man, saw you post, agree with you, wish I could come in and comment on it, but I can't do that. And I've had that shit happen. You know, I agree with it. You're doing the right thing. Hats off to you. I wish I could do that. I just can't. And the reason they say they can't is because they're scared of they're losing their job, of that bubble they've constructed around themselves, of something bursting that bubble. And I got to say, they're probably right. They're probably right, because that's the world we live in. These huge corporations that are out there that are doing this kind of stuff, these agencies. And it's not just private corporations. We've seen government agencies do that as well. We've seen all that. You know, Bunny Middleton, she asked about these agencies that are asking questions that they shouldn't ask. Yeah, it happens. It happens. It happens. What are you going to do about it? You going to lay down and take it, or are you going to start speaking up and doing something about it? Because the more you lay down and take it, I'm going to tell you, the more you take it, the more it's going to happen, and it's going to keep on going. All right. I think this article from the Guardian, this editorial, sums it up. The Uber files tell a simple truth: democracy depends on curbing mercenary tech giants. If you really, and I got to say, I think that, yeah, you know, you see whistleblowers that go out and they do the right thing, and then they become a pariah in the industry. They have trouble getting a job because, oh man, they called out that company, and, you know, we do business with that company, or hell, they may call us out. Well, yeah, they might, but if you're doing the right thing, then you wouldn't have to worry about that. Just a shame. Takes a damn criminal to say it. So that's why no one's doing anything. I guess the big question for me, and it's kind of a rhetorical question. You know, we talked about that moral quandary at the end of the day, and how, you know, that event at that guitar shop, if you're not telling the shop owner that the guitar is more valuable than he's actually got it listed at, or he's not telling you that it's a knockoff and you're about to give several $1,000s for it, how that's not really much different than what Elizabeth Holmes did at Theranos. She just didn't tell people as she got evaluated. You know, her company went to a valuation of $10 billion. It's just a matter of scale. Still the same kind of event, just a matter of scale. So I guess the question is, and that's something I've been pondering the past few days, is a corporation who's doing evil, who's victimizing others, who's breaking the law, how is that any different than these cyber criminals that are committing fraud every day online, stealing your credit card details, breaching companies, stealing data? How is that any different at all? It's still breaking the law. It's still doing the wrong thing. The only difference is it's a matter of scale. That's it. Usually I have a call to action when I talk about shit like this. And I would like to say that I would like to have a call of action. You know, I've been talking at conferences about, you know, we need to start complaining and have Telegram shut down. If Telegram can't agree to answer to United States courts, we need to have it shut down, because you can do that in the United States. You know, the decision makers could actually absolutely shut that shit down. Absolutely, they could. Call of action here. I think it takes some courage. I do. You know, I've actually lost friendships because I have called out the things that these people, lost friendships with people who were telling me this. They would tell me something about a bank or a company or something like that. I'd be, Jesus Christ, somebody's got to say something. And I would go and say something. I can't be your friend anymore. Now, I wouldn't tell them that they told me, but I would say, hey, yeah, this company's doing wrong. This person's doing wrong. This thing is wrong. I've lost friendships. I've been blacklisted at a conference because of it. I would say that I'm not horribly upset because I did the right damn thing, but it's just amazing to me that we're in this type of society where you have to worry about doing the right thing because of the consequences that comes from doing the right thing. I think that if more people would be calling out what needs to be called out, would be pointing at the shit that's being done wrong. If more people would do that as a whole, we wouldn't have these consequences. We'd have companies that would be shaking in their boots saying, shit, we got to get our act together. So I guess that's a call of action. More people need to be speaking out. More people need to be speaking out. And if you're not speaking out, guess what? If you know something's going wrong and you're too damn scared to say it yourself, tell you what, send it to me. Because I promise you, I'll call that shit out. I'm Brett Johnson. Ha! I'm Brett Johnson. This is the Brett Johnson Show. What do we say? We say, stay safe, stay secure, and stay vigilant. We also say this is the Brett Johnson Show. At the end of the day, just do the right damn thing. And that means calling shit out sometimes. Brett Johnson, just do the right damn thing. Thank you guys for listening to me bitch today. I promise a more entertaining, enlightening episode the next time we'll talk about Shadow Crew. I'm Brett Johnson. Thank you for watching. Until next time.